Good afternoon, folks. This is your Peachy boom, 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 drone 'em good update for the 6th. Can we have some extra drones for, let's see. Oh, I don't know. I could think about the Ecclesi's building. Nancy. I wonder what Nancy's last name would be if I was going to, sit there with the joysticks. You can't do that, right? I mean, that's on American soil. Okay. No, Iran wouldn't do something like that next time she's overseas, would they? By the way, please, if you are the Iranians, do not do such a thing. That would be terrible. Oh, my God. I'm sure I'm on another list now. All right. Iran is, of course, going bananas. There is, however, a report that the Marine Corps has sent a notification to the Iraqi parliament stating that they respect their decision to ask us to leave and that we are preparing to do exactly that we're going to withdraw from a large part of our current presence in the country. Good. If you respect sovereignty of nations and the choice of democratically elected governments, irrespective of whether or not that particular vote was what I would consider legitimate or not, doesn't make any difference. Under the rules of the Iraqi parliament, it was, and that's the end of the discussion. That the Sunnis and the Kurds and everybody else that were involved in this, and the Shiites, and all the people on the other side of the debate, decided to boycott the legislative session. Not enough of them did to deny the session a quorum. And since it had a quorum, it was authorized to act, and it did, and voted to tell our people to get the F out. Fine, we'll get the F out. The consequences of that could be quite severe for the Iraqi people, and if they are, that's tough crap. I will note that there are also reports that Iran is essentially playing the battle hymn of the Iran-Iraq war again. Exactly where that's being played, I'm not sure. But if you pay any attention to the smoke signal kind of things that have been going on the last few days over there, and the flags flying from the minarets and things like this, you have to expect that this is indeed going to be the kind of thing that occurs. So we leave, and Iraq is going to be on its own, and should be. If they don't want us there, again, frankly, the fewer places that we have American troops overseas, the better I feel. And by the way, there are some people I know that are caught up in this because they're in the military, and that's the way it goes. And there are people that I have heard of that were essentially grabbed in the last few days and told, pack up your crap, throw a bag over your shoulder and go. We've had some of those heavy lift planes out of here lately. And, of course, there are a lot of them that have gone out of Fort Bragg. But we've had several of them that have left from here that I've heard going over the house. I live where basically any time there's a heavy lift operation going out of Eglin, and sometimes out of Hurlburt, I hear them because their departure pattern takes them pretty much right over the top of my roof. So, and by the way, those planes are pretty distinctive, too. It doesn't leave a lot to the imagination. I know what they are. I don't have to go outside and look. So, fine. If this is the way they want to play it, that's perfectly okay. Let's go do that. Now let's talk peachy a bit for a moment, because I think we have to. Pelosi and Adam Schiff are still running around with their hair on fire, thinking that they have some kind of leverage over the Senate. They do not. The Senate has a set of rules which have essentially standing procedure that the Senate has adopted over a long period of time, which, even though the resolution itself is self-executing by the way it's drafted, the Senate rules of procedure require them to sit for right now. There is a problem with this, however, which is that the Senate rules of procedure can be changed. And so Pelosi and Schiff's gambit at this point is essentially the idea is that they can peel off enough senators to block an attempt to change the Senate rules. I don't think that's going to work. And if the rules are not if the articles are not transmitted here in the next day or two, my expectation is that what you're going to have happen is that the Senate is going to attempt to adopt a resolution that essentially kills the articles for want of prosecution. Now, if they were to do that, and that was to pass, that would be with prejudice, and that would be the end of it. Now the House basically gets this thing thrown back in their face, and the grenade is sitting in Adam and Nancy's hands. The pin's out. Sorry, suckers. So, I think there's a very good possibility that that's exactly how this thing ends up being terminated, or Pelosi's just going to have to crap instead of getting off the pot and transmit what she's got over there. The idea that she can somehow leverage other people, the Senate's procedures and rules and testimony or whatever it is that she and Adam think that's just bullshit. It's out of their hands at this point. They've done their job. Now they need to quit interfering in the activities of the Senate, which, by the way, the House does not have the right to do. If you believe in the Constitution of the United States, the House's role in this process has ended. They simply don't have any leverage and cannot reacquire it. So, this is the way it works. The Senate is free to try all impeachments. It has the sole power to do that under its own rules, and no one has the right to interfere with the Senate's rules in that regard. It doesn't matter whether you agree with them or not. That's just how it works. All right. Next up is again back to this whole war thing. Look, for those of you that have your hair on fire on this, may I point out that oil is actually down about 0.5% today. RBOB gasoline has not moved substantially, which is, of course, what you put in your tank, right? The price of oil is not the big deal. It is the price of RBOB and diesel fuel. But RBOB is a commonly traded futures contract, so it's really easy to track. And it just hasn't moved all that much. I mean, a few percent after the original assault, where we got that black-faced bastard. Oh, no, he wasn't black-faced. He's brown-faced. I don't know what the face. You know what? Here's an interesting fact. You realize that Persians aren't considered colored, right? Let me point something out, that the Persians, who are, that's what Iran is, by the way. That's what it was called before it was called Iran. Persians are whiter than white. They're the original civilized people of I guess you could say they're whiter than Europeans, who tend to have a little bit more of a bronzish kind of skin tone to them, especially in the Mediterranean region. They're absolutely are not brown or black or whatever you care. As by the way, you have these scolds running around saying, Copernic, right? Oh, the Americans, we are oppressing black and brown people. We killed a black and brown guy. Excuse me. Oh boy, the ignorance of people like this is just astounding. By the way, just so you know, that's just kind of where it is. Okay. So no, these are not brown people by stretch of the imagination. But incidentally, if you really get down to it and you start talking to some of the people that have come from there, they actually consider themselves to have their own identity separate from white. But it is white, I guess. They would call themselves Persians, and that's a perfectly legitimate thing for them to do, and with good reason. Just absolutely amazing, that you have people running around thinking that this is the white man oppressing the brown guy. Don't think so. Okay. Back to escalations and things like this. I saw an awful lot of hair on fire type stuff this morning about people getting all freaked out about the possibility of cyber attacks on the power grid, things like that. You know what? I'm not all that exercised on that. Is there a SCADA issue, which is the control systems that run that stuff? Yes, there potentially is. However, I would have thought that by now somebody would have gone after it in this country if they really kind of had it dialed in. There's also a lot of people running around claiming, it's total war. Listen, the Iranians are many things. They are in many ways, especially from a religio-political status. And again, if you've paid any attention to any of my stuff over the years, you know that my view of Islam is that it is much more a political movement than a religious one among all of the polar sides of that faith. Okay, so you have the two main branches, if you will. the Sunnis and the Shiites, and then you have all of the different little offshoots and other things. It's much like Christianity has many different main shoots, if you will. You have Protestants and Catholics, right? And then you have all the different little splinters off of both of those, and also, and by the way, two different kinds of Catholics too. You have the Eastern Orthodox, and then you have the Roman Rite. But then you also have a bunch of little splinter groups in this and that. But pretty much all of the, shall we say, less than purely secular Muslims, the people who look at Islam as not just a faith, but also a political system, this is not in the small ball category as it is with most other religious faiths. It is more along the lines of the kind of way that Judaism has split in that way, in that Judaism has a very substantial percentage of the faith that view Judaism as a political system as much as it is a religion, if not more so. And the same thing is true when it comes to Muslims. And so the idea that these political systems are just going to kind of get along at some point, it's just fantasy. It hasn't been true for 1,000 years. Why would it be true now? I mean, it's not. Do I have anything I would change about the fact that we whacked this guy? No, absolutely not. Am I in any way surprised that Iraq transmitted this request to us and took this vote? Not really, because that was an act of political expedience on the part of their parliament and their prime minister. And oh, by the way, if the rest of the Iraqis cared to actually show up in their parliament and make a stand on it, they should have done so. The Iraqis don't seem to care so much about the fact that we whacked this guy. In fact, an awful lot of them are celebrating it. The Iranians, on the other hand, have an entirely different view of things. But remember, Iran is about as free of a country as is China. So when the government tells you to show up and the imam in your mosque tells you to show up out in the streets and chant death to America, not doing it might mean that it's death to you. We don't seem to remember that the First Amendment is a American construct. It does not apply in places like Iran. Those people that are out there in the middle of the street, anyone that thinks that's an organic protest, you're crazy. You're just flat out crazy. You've never been in a part of the world where political activity is essentially ordered. Well, guess what? It happens in China too. It happens in North Korea. Do you think all the North Koreans who are starving to death are also? They think Kim Jong bastard is just wonderful when he's launching his little rockets and doing his thing. And oh my God, we're gonna get out there. We're gonna cheer this guy on. Excuse me, these people don't have a pot to piss in. Now, will they go do it if they're ordered? Well, yeah. What is the alternative? You find yourself as a target for a 20 millimeter anti-aircraft weapon? That's been done over there. You think he wouldn't do it again? Of course he would. You think the Iranian mullahs would? Come on, folks, wake the F up. But, listen, that we called Iraq's bluff and said, okay, you want us out of the country? We're preparing to depart. We're going to stage the people and materials necessary to do that. We're going to start loading stuff up and out we go. Yep. And oh, by the way, if ISIS comes back in and decides to take your country back over because you don't really want our help and you don't want our stuff and you don't want our people and in other words, you're not asking anymore. You're saying get out. Oh, that's your problem. Again, my doctrine, my foreign policy doctrine is very clear, and it doesn't seem to be all that far away from Trump's, which kind of shocks me. Although Trump isn't going to do anything that's going to cut that $700 billion defense budget down. I would end up with a defense budget of about $250 billion in the space of about 2 years. And by the way, I'm happy to go down a list and give it all to you sometime in a later podcast. If people want it, tell me in the comments, and I'll kind of go down and take some numbers and see if I can get to 250. I might not be able to do it, but I bet I can cut it in half. I bet that wouldn't be all that hard. So anyway, that's where we are for today. I'm sort of looking forward to the fireworks as long as these people want to play. Let's let them do their thing, and we should leave and say, well, hey, there you go. As far as Trump's demand that Iraq give us the money that we spent over there, remember we essentially, since the second Iraq situation and going in there, that was an invasion. Okay, no doubt. However, then once they got their government, they wanted our help. in terms of taking care of ISIS and using it as a base of operations, things like this. And where we put those bases, folks, people say, oh, they're so terrible. The impact on the local economies in those areas. Hey, you take Eglin Air Force Base over here and you close it and you tell me what happens to the local Fort Walton Beach and the local area in terms of its economy. You go to shit in an hour. All right, so anyone who thinks that these countries that have had this supposed oppressive force aren't benefiting tremendously from this, you're out of your minds. They absolutely have been. So, we'll leave. We'll drop a few sanctions on people. You trade with these guys. You let them in. Well, guess what? Oops, sorry. No oil sales for you. No dollars for you. Have a nice day. We'll see how that works out for you. And, that's just okay. If you guys all want to kill each other, hey, you've only been doing it for 1,000 years. What's another 10 or 20? I'm your ticker guy. That's how I see it.